So yeah, the beginning is always the hardest. I don't know why. It's kind of like getting into it a little bit. But yeah, like Pastor Anthony said, this morning might be a little different. It may sound a little different, and it might look a little different. I might get emotional. It's okay. You might get emotional. It's okay. But the point of today is I'm going to talk about hope. I'm going to talk about how good Jesus is. I'm going to talk about what hope really can look like, what it should look like, and what it can do for your lives. The Bible dictionary of hope is, it's to trust in, to wait for, to look for, or desire something, or to expect something beneficial in the future. Hope leads to comfort. You know, it's one of those words that kind of gets thrown around when you're in the midst of a hard time or a rough time. It's a word that people just kind of say, like, well, you just got to have some hope. You just got to believe that there's something. And while that is so true, I think sometimes it just becomes a word that we just throw off of our lips, off of our tongue. And this morning I want to dig into that word. I want to dig into what it means, because the truth is that hope is Jesus. Hope is what Jesus brings to us, is what he brought to us. You know, we all know the Christmas story. We all hear about it around this time of year. We all hear messages preached about it. And so often we hear about how Jesus came, right? We hear about, you know, the manger, and we hear about Mary and Joseph, and we hear about their lives and certain points of their lives and how Jesus came into the world, right? But do we talk about why it happened? Do we explain why Jesus came? Because there is a point and there is a reason. We don't just need to know how, but we need to understand why. And the why is for us, and the why is for our lives and for our future. I want to go to John 1. We're going to go to chapter 1, verse 14. So the Word became human and made his home among us. He was full of unfailing love and faithfulness, and we have seen his glory, the glory of the Father's one and only Son. John testified about him when he shouted to the crowds, "This is the one I was talking about when I said, 'Someone is coming after me who is far greater than I am, for he existed long before me.' From his abundance we all have received one gracious blessing after another. For the law was given through Moses, but God's unfailing love and faithfulness came through Jesus Christ." I just want to pray real quick before we go into the rest of the message here. Father, I again thank you for this morning, God. I thank you for this opportunity. Father, I pray that the words that I speak, the things that come forth from my mouth this morning, God, would be for you and only you, God. All for your glory, Jesus. Father, we thank you for letting us celebrate this wonderful season right now, Father. In your name we pray, amen. So I'm going to go back to 7 months ago in our lives. And 7 months ago, life was pretty good. We were excited for the arrival of Nora. We were very close to her coming. We were anticipating all that was about to happen in our lives. We were thinking about becoming a family of 4. And it was good. We were excited. We were full of life. I'm going to explain just real quick a brief explanation of what kind of happened with Nora, just so everyone kind of understands and can kind of see exactly where I'm coming from through all this. So my pregnancy was very healthy with Nora. Everything was good. Everything was moving right along. One morning, my water broke. And usually when your water breaks, it's unexpected, and it was unexpected. We went to the hospital and started the whole process of going into labor. We were excited. We were looking forward to it. We couldn't believe it was actually happening. It was a little early, but at that point, we didn't think much about it because Anderson came early, and we were excited. We were waiting the arrival. We were only at the hospital for about 2 hours, and that was when I got up to use the restroom, and when I came back, everything had changed. When I came back, the nurse tried to hook me back up to the monitor, and that was when she discovered that there was no heartbeat. So when I tell you within like seconds, our room was filled with doctors and nurses and so many people. And they quickly confirmed by the doctor that, there was no heartbeat. So they immediately rushed us to surgery. And they got Nora out as quickly as they could. But that was when we discovered that because of the no oxygen to the brain, for that amount of time, even though it was short, it left Nora with a long list of complications. So that began our journey of the up and downs. She was immediately transferred to Akron Children's Hospital. Brandon left to go be with her because I obviously was in no state to leave the hospital at that point. So from there, that was on a Friday. From there, everything was just up and down, back and forth with Nora. She was fighting really, really, really hard for her life, pretty much. And it was on that Sunday, June 24th, that I was discharged from the hospital. My mom and I were on our way to the hospital so I could go see her and hold her. And that was when Brandon had called me and said, I had just talked to some doctors, and, when you get here, we have some more doctors to talk to. So when we got to the hospital, and that was also when we decided to call our families in just to say, hey, if you guys want to come meet Nora, if you want to come see her, Pastor Anthony and Katie were able to come be with us during that time. And so we got to the hospital, and everyone was able to be there and surround Nora, and Brandon and I were able to hold her, and it was that afternoon that our Nora took her last breath. She was in our arms, and we got to have the most amazing and special time with her. And then from there, just began a journey of the unknown. That this is not the type of thing that anyone, or any tragedy in life really, you can read books and you can go through things, but there is not a script for what to do in those moments. There isn't. Nobody knows. I didn't know, family didn't know. We kind of just were in this place of putting everything that we had in the Lord's hands. The amazing thing about all of it was that, and Brandon and I have talked about this, is that there was something that happened, and I think it was probably in that hospital room that day when we were holding her, that peace just surrounded us, and it never left us, not once. We were able to get through things. We were able to talk about things. We were able to plan her memorial service because of his peace, because of him holding us, because of him loving us. And see, that's the thing that is so incredible about Jesus, is that there's things that come with Jesus. There were things that came with him when he was born as a baby that are for us and only us for our lives. And we may not need all of those things at every point in our lives, but that was a time when we needed peace. And so we grasped a hold of it. That was a time when we needed love, so we grasped a hold of it. Those were the things that we needed in those times. And we knew that God had a plan. We knew that he had a purpose. We knew that this was greater than us. And I'll be honest and say that was one of those things that, in that time, I don't think a lot of people knew this, because I really didn't share this with too many people. And it was just this past week that I started sharing it with someone, but there was something that happened, and I don't, there's different things that go on in your mind when you're dealing with tragedy, when you're dealing with heartbreak, and different battles that you can have. And for some reason, I had got to a point where those words, that there's a plan and a purpose, I got very angry with. I was very frustrated with those words at that point. And I was to the point, I remember sitting there one day thinking, like, if one more person tells me that there's a plan and a purpose for Nora's life and everything that's going on, I might punch him in the face. Even though I knew it to be true, even though I knew that he had a plan and a purpose, what had happened was it almost painted this picture in my mind. It almost gave me this image that, and not necessarily that people were saying it, and I didn't get angry at people for saying it. It was just those words in general that I got very, very frustrated with. But what it almost did was it said to me that, yep, God has a plan and a purpose. So God's sitting there saying, well, Val, this happens to people, so deal with it. Figure it out. You'll be okay. And I'll tell you, it didn't happen for very long, and it was just a simple battle in my mind for a few days. But then I got to the point where I said, no. I said, that is not how my Jesus is. That is not how my God is. He is carrying us. He is holding us through this season. And I got to a point where I said, you know what? If I wanted to lean on something, I needed to lean on Jesus, because at that point in time, Jesus, and he still is, the closest thing that I have to Nora. Because he's with her. That's where she is right now. She's with Jesus. So if I need something, I need to go to Jesus. So instead of painting this picture in my mind that God is sitting back, instead I let him hold me. And I realized that he's weeping with me. He's heartbroken. You know, so many times what happens, unfortunately, in tragedies is that people tend to look at situations like this, and they tend to get angry, and they tend to get frustrated at God. And while those are things that happened, and while those are things that sometimes we come across in tragedy and heartbreak, Brandon and I, we never really did that. I never really got angry or frustrated or mad, because I knew that he had a plan, and I knew that he had a purpose. And see, the truth is that in those days when we found out that Nora had this long list of complications, we began praying. We began asking people to pray for us. We began asking people to pray for Nora, because we believed that a miracle could happen. We believed that God at any point in time could have done something. We believed it wholeheartedly. And yes, did Nora still die? Yes, she did. But the truth is that we prayed for a miracle. And that miracle it looks different than Nora living. I still don't know what that miracle might look like. I still don't know the big picture. And honestly, I don't want to know the big picture. The big picture might not be exact. It might scare me a little bit, because God has a plan and he has a purpose. Our miracle is Nora's life. Our miracle is her legacy now. Our miracle is seeing what is God going to do in us and through us with her life. Her life, it happened unexpectedly. We can't explain it. You know, the way that everything kind of transformed and the way that everything happened, I can't explain it all, but I can say that his hand was on the entire thing with us. You know, the truth is that we could look at so many different things with Nora. It's just, honestly, I could have not gone to the doctor that morning, and I could have not been sent to the hospital. And if I wouldn't have done that because of the certain situations going on in that morning, if I would have waited, we wouldn't have had the opportunity to hold Nora while she was alive like we did. But the Lord blessed us with that. And people say, what do you mean the Lord blessed you with that? Yeah. Nora passed away, but we were blessed with being able to see her and hold her and love on her for those few moments of her life. So this morning, when we talk about hope, when we talk about Jesus, realize this morning that what you need in your life, he has for you, and he wants to give you in seasons of your life. Things aren't always easy, and things aren't always perfect. But I'll tell you what God is, and everything that we go through is for our good, and it's for his glory. Everything that we go through is for our good. And I'll say it again, it's for his glory, because he loves us, because he cares for us, because he holds us in seasons of our life. I would not have gotten through this if it wasn't for him. I would not have gotten through this if it wasn't for his hope and his love and his peace. You know, there were days that I needed different things. There were mornings that I would wake up and I needed to laugh. I needed joy, and I knew that it was okay. And so I did what I could to laugh, to find joy. There were days that I would wake up and I needed peace. I needed peace over the situation. There were days that I would wake up and I would need so much strength. So much strength to get out of bed that day. And I would do it. And it was all because of Jesus. You know, that's one thing that Brandon and I had talked about when we were going through this and still are going through this, and would have moments and we would say, I don't know how people get through tragedy and hard times in their life without Jesus. I really don't. Because if I didn't have him in my life, I don't know where I would be right now. I would probably be still laying in bed, reliving things and going over things and trying to have answers and trying to put it all together. But instead, I'm not. Instead, I'm choosing to do something with this. Instead, I am choosing to get out of bed. I am choosing to let Nora's life live on in some way. By letting God use me through all of this. Letting God use our marriage through all of this. You know, our marriage, I think we both could say, I hope we both could say, that, I could say, that it was somehow strengthened through all this. And I'll tell you what, that's not something that's common, that's not something that always happens. Unfortunately, sometimes marriages fall apart, they crumble in situations like this. But instead, I think from day one, we said, hey, we can't let this happen. We got to focus on us, and we got to get through this together as a couple and let God carry us through this season. And so we let that happen. I want to go, the last verse here, Hebrews 6:15, starting at verse 15. It says, "Then Abraham waited patiently, and he received what God had promised. Now, when people take an oath, they call on someone greater than themselves to hold them to it. And without any question, the oath is binding. God also bound himself with an oath, so that those who receive the promise could be perfectly sure that he would never change his mind. So God has given both his promise and his oath. These two things are unchangeable because it is impossible for God to lie. Therefore, we who have fled to him for refuge can have great confidence as we hold the hope that lies before us. This hope is a strong and trustworthy anchor for our souls. It leads us through the curtain into God's inner sanctuary." This hope is a strong and trustworthy anchor. Like I said before, hope leads to comfort in our lives. Hope leads to a promise of a good future for us, of good things in our lives. You know, we had said this, and a few times that I had posted on social media and stuff. That's the one thing that I say to people is that yes, this is rough and this has been hard, but God is still good to us. He showed us blessing after blessing after Nora had passed in our lives that we can't explain. Things that we were praying for before Nora were answered through all of this happening. You know, we didn't even know some of those things we didn't know this was going to happen. We didn't know, but that's the incredible thing, is that God knows everything. God knows our lives. God knows what we're going to go through. And yes, we can say, but God, then why do we have to go through it? We don't know exactly why everything happens. We don't. I still don't know, but I'm okay with it. I've gotten to the point where I can say I'm okay without the answers. Like I said before, the big picture might scare me a little bit. I don't know if I want the answer. And so I'm going to sit back and I'm going to trust him in that. You know, I think that so often in our lives, I think that this world likes to throw to us that when we go through hard times or when we go through tragedy, that we have to suffer. That we have to be in a deep, dark place, that we have to have counseling and we have to go on medication and we have to do all these things. And while those things do happen and while those things do sometimes need to happen for people's lives, I think we need to get to a point to realize that Jesus was born so that he could die on a cross, so that he could take away all of our pain and all of our suffering, that we don't have to live like this, that when things happen in our lives, We can know and we can go to the source and we can say, God, I don't know how to do this. Jesus, I don't know how to live through this. Jesus, I don't know how to cope with all this. And he says, okay, fall into me and I will carry you in this season. I've already suffered for you. I've already been through pain for you. You don't have to go through it alone. We don't have to suffer. We don't have to go through hard times in our life. We can put everything into Jesus. And when that happens, when we put our life into him, when we put our hope into him, when we put our trust into him, when we put everything, every worry, every fear into him, he gives us everything that we need in return. He gives us his love. He gives us his hope. He gives us his unconditional love. And we can go messy. We can go it doesn't have to look the greatest. It doesn't have to sound the greatest. It doesn't have to be perfect. We can go to Jesus in our mess. And he does incredible things with it because he loves us, because he cares for us, because he knows that our future is great. But see, we can't just sit back and say, I don't know what else to do. I don't know where else to turn, so I'm just going to sit back and hope that something happens. I promise you, if you do that, you'll fall deeper and deeper and deeper into a hole if you don't put everything into Jesus. Because he cares for you, because he loves you, because he has done all of this for you and for your life. Because he believes that there's good, because he knows that there's good. Life hasn't been easy for us the past 6 months. We have our days that are great, that are awesome, but we have our days that are emotional, that are rough. We don't apologize for it. Because we know that it's all part of this process. But each day we get through it because of his hope, because of his love, because we trust in him. Like I said, we trust in, we wait for, we look for, we're desiring something. We believe that there is something greater with all of this with Nora. So that keeps us going. That keeps us believing that he has big plans for us. So this morning, where are you in your life? Emily, if you want to come play. Where are you in your life? Do you need something today? Have you been crying out for something in your life? Have you needed Jesus in some way in your life lately? You know, sometimes, and a lot of people talk about it, that Christmas and holiday seasons is not always easy for people. That unfortunately, it's a season that can be very hurtful for people, that can bring back a lot of memories, it can bring back a lot of things. It's something that some people don't always look forward to. But when you put everything into Jesus, it doesn't have to be that way. You know, you can make a choice to say, you know what, my family, it might not be the greatest situation to go to that house, but where I go, what I do, I'm going to bring Jesus with me. And trust that he is going to take you, he is going to lead you, and he is going to guide you in your life. Don't let yourself get to the point of digging yourself in this deeper hole because you want to push out everyone else around you. You want to push away Jesus. You want to try and figure it all out on your own. It would have been very easy for Brandon and I to do that, to push everybody else away. But we knew that we couldn't. We knew that we had to draw our families closer to us. We knew that the people that wanted to reach out, that wanted to love on us, we had to let them do it. There's people in our lives that want to be placed, that try and be placed so that they can help us. They can help guide us. Don't push those people away in your life. But more importantly, don't push Jesus away in your life. If you're looking for hope, if you're looking for something to cling to, then cling to Jesus. Because that's how we got through this. That's how we got through tragedy. And listen, saying, Val, I'm okay right now. My life is okay right now, and I don't want to speak negative over you. I don't want to say that, things are going to happen and all this stuff, but the truth is that we live in a fallen world. We live in a world that is not good. But we serve a God who is, and things are going to happen in our lives that are not good, that are not pretty, that are not easy. But we serve a God who is. We serve a God that sits on the throne and is leading us and guiding us, who loves us, who cares for us, that is holding us in those times. People can say and people can get mad, like I said, and say, why would God do something like this? And the truth is that God did not do this to us. The truth is that we live in a fallen world. We live in a world that Satan wants to kill, that Satan wants to destroy. And right now, I think that Satan thought that he could have our family. Satan thought that something like this could destroy us. And I tell you what, it's not. I'm not going to let something like this destroy us. I am going to let God use this. I'm going to find the hope in this. I'm going to find the love in this. And I'm going to see the goodness of God through this, because I want to, because I know that it's good. Nora may have passed away, but her life is going to live on forever. Things are going to happen in our lives, but when we put our trust, when we put our hope into Him, I promise it's a lot easier. One of the biggest things that I cry out for now is when I see people going through things like this and they don't know Jesus. My heart breaks for them. I want to run to them. I want to say, what are you doing? I promise it's so much easier if you trust in Jesus. And it's not always easy, and it's not always pretty. But I'll tell you, it's what's good.